Do this. Mike Weber, President and owner of SEAP-Solutions. On the line with me today, I've got Ken Ward. He's our VP of e-learning solutions and services. Ken will actually be doing the presentation for all of you. He's our expert. And we're going to start off with a small, maybe couple of slides just to talk about SEAP-Solutions and the actual UPerform platform. And we really want the focus of this presentation to be on the product. So at any time, if you have any questions, something comes up, you want more details, feel free to interrupt anytime and we'll do our best to answer the questions. Are we ready to go?
We sure are.
All right, Ken, you're on, my friend.
Perfect. I just want to say thank you to everyone for giving us this opportunity. I look forward to presenting UPerform to you. As Mike mentioned, I'll be providing the demo, and I have a short PowerPoint to start off with, basically just to talk about what UPerform is and a little bit about SEAP-Solutions. So our agenda here is basically going to talk about the capabilities of UPerform, as well as the demonstration, and then afterwards we'll have a bit of a Q&A session. So basically, UPerform is an authoring tool that comes with a learning content management system built in with it. So UPerform will help you create your step-by-step processes. It'll create everything from your simulations to your documents, anything that you want to import into your learning management system if you already have one set up. It also provides support to your users after the training has been completed. So it has content-sensitive help. And I'm going to show a bit of all these things today in the demo that I have set up for you. So that was my brief PowerPoint. I'm going to go right into the demo now. The first part of this demo will be from an end user's experience. So currently what you're seeing on your screen is the UPerform Learning Library. This is what your users will see if they're using the UPerform site to access their content. This is out of the box. It's completely configurable. You can put your logo, color scheme, and add some images to make the page look more inviting to your users. Everything is set up on a project basis. So for example, I have a Canada Post project as well as a CP project. So when the user wants to access the Canada Post content, all they have to do is click on the project to get into that content. Projects can be used many ways. One way you can use it, as you can see here, is you can set it up for different companies, or you can set it up for different target applications. So if you're providing training on Maximo, you could have a Maximo project, and then you can have a Microsoft Office project, depending on how you want to organize things for your end user. So I'm going to go into the Canada Post project. And from here, the way the users can access content is we have a Microsoft Office course, as well as a Maximo course, right on the front page. Underneath that, there are some folders. So if the users would like to see more detail on that content, they could select, for example, the Maximo folder, and it brings them into the Maximo content. So they have anything from courses to documentation that may be linked to those courses. At any time, if the user has questions, they can select the More option, and they can add this to their favorites, take an assessment right from here, link it to their portfolio, or contact support. When they contact support, they can get anything from ask questions to a subject matter, a SME. So basically, you can link it to an email where it can go to the SMEs, or they could just get basic support depending on how you want to set that up.
Ken?
Yes?
Quick question. So would this be what I would see as an end user, as far as, let's say, the learner, or the author and the person who's setting it up or creating it?
This would be the learner.
The learner.
Okay.
Yep. So I will go through the author role as well as an administration role. And the other thing about this is, for example, here, if you don't want them to go through the step-by-step here, you can select the course, and the link that you have up here, you can link it directly to your intranet, so that they can click a hyperlink within your intranet, and it takes them right into the Perform application, and they don't have to navigate to the courses. This is just if you don't have something already, like a learning management system or a content management system for your learning material. So I'm just going to take a step back. So there's a breadcrumb here to make it easy for your users to navigate. And I'm actually going to go into the documentation. So the documentation is anything that was recorded within UPerform. You could bring in external documents as well. So if you have PowerPoints that are relevant, or basically any type of file, you could bring it into UPerform as a managed document, and the system will treat it as one of its own. So I'll talk about that more when we get into the administration side of things. What you're seeing here are different processes. So for example, if I click on the navigate where to enter an asset, it opens it up as what's called a cue card. And as I scroll down, you can see you get your workflow as well as your step-by-step. So this is just a short process to show what it would look like for a user. You can have anywhere from 1 to a couple hundred steps, depending on how big or complicated that process is. There are many different outputs that UPerform offers. So from one recording, I got the cue card, as well as work instructions, which has your screenshots, procedure table, which gives you a nice clean table to look at. If the user wants to expand the screenshot, they can click on the table with the column with the screenshot, and it will expand it for them. They can just close that by clicking the X here. Guided help. So when they need help in the system, they click help, and it brings them to a nice guided help window here, which will sit on top of the application and will guide them through the step-by-step process. Now this is content sensitive or context sensitive help. So when they're in the application itself and click help, it brings them right to the process that they need help on, rather than them having to go through many different processes and pick and choose which one. The system will know exactly where they are and bring them to the relative content.
So Ken.
Yep.
So this is me logging into your point, just to give me some context, and I apologize.
Yep.
Just to clarify, this is me as a learner accessing the UPerform site in order to take training, and this is kind of the LMS side of the house versus the EPSS side of the house. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes. So
okay.
Sorry?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So what I'm showing right here is what a document could look like, and this is where the content resides, but this would be linked to your target application. So say your learners in the, they've taken the course, they completed the training, and now they're in the live environment that you train them on, and they get stuck on something. They click help, this window appears to the, right on the page that they need help on. So it's more than just a training tool. It provides training, support, as well as content-sensitive help, all in one package from one sourced recording. Does that make sense?
Yes, much better. Thank you. I was just trying to get my bearings as to what I was looking at, or the experience, and what a learner would see, or how they would access this. Is it to get the training, get information on the training? Is it done through your site, or through what we do now, which is through our learning management system, or anyway, so that was why I was asking.
Yep.
So thank you. Great.
So this content can also be linked to your learning management system if you already have one set up. through a variety of ways. It's AICC compliant as well as SCORM compliant. So you can bring it in it's fully capable to be integrated with your learning management system. So
we have success factors.
okay, and I assume it would accept SCORM packages or AICC compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long as it accepts those type of packages, you can bring the UPerform content directly into it.
So in terms of the content being updated dynamically, if we are in the authoring side of it and we change a word or something like that, will it automatically update the launch link from our LMS, or do we have to reload the package?
If you brought it in as a SCORM package, you would have to reload. You just have to reload that package. So it's a simple process. Like you just publish the content from the recorder, which you'll see in a moment, and then it creates that zip file for you, and you just drag and drop it into the learning management system depending on how it accepts its content. It's either going to be a drag and drop, or you click browse and grab the package, but it's a quick process.
Is there a way, because I am familiar with that process, because that's how we load content in today. Is there a way that we could launch directly to the UPerform platform, so kind of bypass the need to upload and just link directly to UPerform and get the dynamic changes as they're happening? There
is, but I can't guarantee to work with your learning management system. I have never worked with it before. So you said you're using success factors. What I can do is contact Ansili after the call and see if it'll work with that one if they know. But you may have to do some tweaking to get it to work. I do know that it is AICC compliant, so you should be able to link directly to it. If you're using Tin Can, you'd be using an LRS as well with it. I don't know if you have an LRS set up, but if you do, you could do it that way as well, where the two use the LRS to communicate to each other, and then anything you update in UPerform automatically carries through to your learning management system. So there's a few ways of setting it up, but I can't guarantee to work with your learning management system because I don't have experience with that one in particular, but I do know it works with things like Moodle and SEAP LMS as well. So some it works with. I can't guarantee it works with yours.
Okay.
But it's definitely a question that I can raise.
Okay, thank you.
So that being said, Joanne, while I've got you on and we're speaking about this, I know we're talking about the LCMS or the LMS side, sorry, but so one of the drivers for this, Ken, was really around the EPSS side of the house, if you will. And one of the things I thought was kind of really exciting for me, what I heard was the fact that when we do create theoretically that content support, EPSS skin, call it what you will, overlay, that it would directly connect with our LMS. And one of the things we had learned is from a recording perspective, looking to do that using UPerform, whereby we would have that application training on the system, and then it would link to our learning management system.
Yep.
Is that similar to what we're speaking here? Is that a completely apples and oranges?
Oh, that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. If I may, success factor is a module that is, if I'm not wrong here, it's linked to the SAP application. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, as you may or may not be aware, Ansili has built their application, the UPerform platform, if you want, based on the actual SAP, because they were an SAP partner for the longest time. And as well as they did all the content-sensitive help and integration with SAP, as we're talking about now. Ken will confirm, but I'm pretty 99% sure that the link could be done directly from the success factor to Ansili and to the content, the location content, if you want, that you'll be creating with UPerform, and it's going to update automatically. You still have to do the publishing process. That's a given because Nothing's out there until it's published and approved through the process that Ken will be showing in a minute or so. But I'm pretty sure that, yes, it will integrate seamlessly because it's based on SAP mostly, this application.
Okay.
Right.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you read my mind. That was exactly the next question I was asking. Well, honestly, a question I was asked by my superiors, if you will, around, okay, is it an SAP true company owned by them? And to your point, obviously, in vis-a-vis integrated, whereby, especially Success Factors is an SAP subsidiary or partner or company, I guess.
That's
so
correct.
that was the hope that that would be the case.
That is correct. Yeah, they integrate seamlessly with everything. Okay, Ken, back at you.
Okay, so that's the guided help. From here, if a user wants to share it, they can click the share icon at the bottom here, and then they could either share the work instruction or basically all the documentation that's available, and then you can choose what type of output you'd like to share. You could share it as a PDF file, PowerPoint presentation, or Word document. All these are configurable through the templates as well as your publishing options. So I didn't make absolutely everything available because that's a very large list. And as you can see, you can pick and choose what type of document you want to have, a PDF or Word or PowerPoint. So that's why the list looks different depending on which output you want to choose. So from one recording, we get all these document types as well as these published outputs. You get your videos and simulations. So if I click the play option, you can see I have a play video, and it automatically goes through the simulation that you've created or the document you've created while recording the content. If you want to see the simulation, just click on the simulation icon, and then here you have your different playback modes. The first one, which is the auto playback, is basically like the video that we saw earlier. Of course, it always opens on the wrong monitor. You can't hear it right now, but there's text to speech that is talking while I'm talking. So I'm going to see if I can get you to hear the text to speech. But I don't think my headset will allow that. You hear me?
We can.
Perfect. So I'm going to try the standard tutorial. Sorry about that. So the standard tutorial is like the auto playback. The difference is the user actually has to interact with it. So this is great for the hands-on users. I don't know if you can hear the text to speech, but
Barely, but we can hear something.
okay. So the text to speech is automatically generated once we record the content. So it basically reads off what's in the bubble here. You can also add additional content to it through transcript text, which I'll show you once we get into the creation of this content. Any questions about the documentation?
No, we were just saying that again, from a usability, it ironically enough seems very similar to Articulate, which we're familiar with. So that's a plus in that it is somewhat we're very familiar, it's not a platform or a modality we're familiar with. So as you're going through it, we're like, oh, that looks quasi-familiar.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go back to the Canada Post, and I'll show you. I'll just quickly go through what a course looks like. So here's a small course I made on Maximo, and it also has text to speech. So as all this text is coming in, it is reading it off to me. The text to speech is great for the people that are visually impaired, as well as those that are that learn through audio. In this course, I've set it up so that you can have links that go to different pages. So as I click on the link here, it brings me to that page, which is an embedded video. That video was actually created using YouPerform. If I click back, it brings me to another embedded video. So I've navigated to a different page, and this video is embedded off of YouTube. So you can embed videos from multiple sources. You can embed videos that were created within YouPerform. You could also embed any video that's local on your machine, as well as embed videos that are on separate sites. So it doesn't have to be YouTube. I used YouTube as an example here, but any streaming site for the most part will allow you to embed those videos depending if that content's protected or not. We'll just quickly navigate through to the next page. And here's the simulation built right into the course. Now, I've already shown you the simulation, but I showed you the standard and auto playback tutorials. We also have self-test and the assessment tutorial. The self-test and assessment are very similar. It doesn't give the person instruction. It basically, you have to remember the process to complete this part of the simulation. If you make a mistake, it asks if you want assistance. If you click yes, it basically tells you where to click. So I'll just quickly finish this. Once you finish your assessment or your self-test, it'll give you a score at the end. As you can see, I only got 43%, and it tells me which steps I've made mistakes on, so I can go back and review that part of the process. If I did the assessment tutorial, it would grade me and store the final score I got in the system, so that an administrator can go in or a manager can go in and see what my score was. You can embed images, and from those images you could bring in hotspot links. So as I hover over things, or when I click on one of these items, it gives me a pop-up link. This can link either to a pop-up as you see here, or to an external website. You can link it to different pages within the course. So you can make this like a small little quiz if you wanted to, and when they click on it, if they get it wrong, it takes them to the right spot. There's many different options for these hotspot links. And here you can.
Ken, this is
yes.
Jessica. Just a quick question when we're on the topic of the assessment. Is it possible to not have any grading where it's just a pass or fail? Because in some instances with our courses, we don't actually want to give them a grade.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, that's all controlled through the template, so you don't need to give them a final score. You could just say pass or fail. So just exit the course. Any questions about the course?
Go ahead. Yes, we do.
Yes, hi. I've got a question about the voice to text. We couldn't really hear the audio sample that was being used. Okay. Could you describe it? Is it a little bit like Siri, where the guy reads more or less in a staccato fashion, or is it more fluid? And how is it in French? Because we have to take into consideration bilingual services. I don't know if you heard my question.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
So the text-to-speech has multiple voices that you can use. The standard voices are a little bit like Siri, where it is robotic, but you can bring in additional voices if you weren't happy with the ones that were provided. It does support Canadian French, so we have government clients that use both English and French text-to-speech. So those voices are there, and they're fully functional.
Cool. Okay. And sorry, thank you for answering that. Another quick follow-up, though. Do we have to rely exclusively on the voice-to-text functionality, or can we import narration that we would pre-record somewhere else?
You can import you can import narration, or you can actually record your voice as you're recording your content to provide live voiceover if you wanted to.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Cool, thanks. I wasn't sure of the functionality or the flexibility of the voice functionality. Thanks a lot. Anybody else at the table? Or?
Any other questions so far in the room? Good. I think we're good, Ken. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show is the administration side. So I'm just going to switch to a different browser where I already have it logged in, so I don't have to keep logging in and out. So I'm logged in as a administrator of UPerform. Okay. I have many different areas on my screen that are considered widgets. So for example, I have my projects widget, which shows me all the projects that are available to me. I have my alerts. So any document that I own, if someone else starts working with it, or if the system determines it needs to be updated, it automatically will appear here. Now, since I assume you're creating content for SAP, you can use the transaction codes and put a date on those, or assign dates to your content where the system will actually provide you an alert to let you know that it needs to be updated. So like Mike mentioned, UPerform was built to work with SAP. So through the transaction codes, the system can identify when there's changes, and will point out which documents need to be updated. Underneath that, I have my tasks. So any task that was assigned to me, whether it's a creation task, a review task, if there's a workflow assigned to me, it's all brought to me here. For example, if you're using a workflow and you have a document that you want to be reviewed by multiple people, you can assign that document to those people and put the order in which you want them to review it in. So if I wanted to say Tim to review a document, I'll assign the workflow to Tim, and once he's done, it could go to Sarah, and then when she's done, it could go to someone else, and then once it's been reviewed by everyone and approved by everyone, it can either get automatically published or sent back to me, where I can do that final publish if I didn't want the system to do it for me. If they reject the document, it comes back to me, and they should leave their notes telling me why they rejected it, and then I can go in and edit it accordingly. Your tasks can be assigned to multiple people as well. So for instance, if I wanted a SME to create a document for me, even though they don't have access to the UPerform developer, it'll give them access to the Rapid Recorder. And what that is a dumbed down version of the UPerform developer that allows them to record the content, and then once they're done, it automatically comes back to me where I can make those edits. So it has a very robust system to ensure that content gets created on time and reviewed by the people that need to review it. And whoever is the admin of the system, or a manager, can create these workflows to ensure that nothing is missed. If something gets behind time or something is late, it shows up in red, and will actually send you an email notification to let you know that, okay, this task was missed, and then it reminds you to complete it. Underneath that, I have my favorites. I also have a report that I built to report on my different tasks. A document tracking report that gives me a nice bar graph. I have a line graph here, basically showing the same thing. And I also have an assessment performance report here, which gives me a quick pie chart. If I wanted to see more details, I can click to show detail.
Sorry, can I stop you here for 1 second? It's
Yep.
Jessica again. When you were talking about the admins or needing to have a license to go in, and let's say if I've tagged a SME with a document with a due date, they don't need to have a license to UPerform in order to access that document to do an update?
The UPerform licenses are basically, there's no difference between a user license and a developer license.
Okay, so they need to have a license in order to access the document and update it.
Correct, but
Okay.
it's only one type of license though. So long as you have a license for the group of people that are going to be viewing the content and working on it, you don't need to pay more for a developer license versus the users, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay, so
Yeah.
what you mean is just it's a kind of one-stop shop, one type of license.
Exactly. So
Got it. Okay.
yeah, every one of your end users could potentially be an author or an admin if you wanted.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you.
Ken, I had another question. It's Joanne. Relating to the content. So I would not be authoring anything, but I would need to know when the content has been published to potentially upload it to our LMS. Is there an automatic notification that could be set up?
Yes.
Okay.
So it could send you an email notification with a link to it. The only thing that they would have to do is either make you part of a workflow where you're the last one in the chain, or assign you the ownership of that document, and then you'll get those notifications.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So Ken, it's really kind of set up as three different, correct me if I'm wrong, if I walk through that chain as you said, it kind of starts with the authoring, authors who create and curate and work in the content, and then you have the admin who set it up and manage the back end, if you will, and who gets assigned and tracking and all that, and then you have the end users that consume said training, all using the same type of license. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so after I click the more details, I could expand this out so that I can see exactly how well the students are doing. Obviously, this would probably be a little bit bigger depending on how many users you have, but as you can see that I have fail, pass, I can see the score, and this is completely configurable. So you could remove or add as many columns as you need. So this is just a quick report I made to show what the options are, but you can customize this and completely tailor it to only show the information that you want. You can do that with any of the reports that you see here. You can also make brand new custom reports and tie them to a widget that will give you a nice little chart that I have here. This is one of my favorite things because I just prefer having my charts rather than just lines and lines of text. Any questions on this?
No, so far so good. Again, we're just kind of seeing how it would work within our own organization as far as who would see that. Is it the project lead? Is it the admin group? Is it the process owner? So just looking at the application in which it would be used in. So nope, that's good. I think we're good. Anybody else around the room? No? Okay.
Okay. So I'm just going to go into the project here and show you what it looks like from the admin point of view. As an admin, I can see right away all the documents that are part of this content. So it gives me a brief report here where it shows me what's not started. I can click on the links to see those documents. Under development, under review, published with no context assigned. And basically what that means is the content has been published out, but it hasn't been linked to any websites or anything along those lines. So it's published, but your users can't access it. What's expired? So anything that you put an expiry date on would appear there, and then under revision. So all this is automatically updated by the system depending on if it's been assigned to a workflow, has it been published, is it just a task that was created but the person hasn't started working on it yet, that sort of thing. You get a more detailed report at the bottom here, which tells you who's owning what documents, if it's been published or not, and so on. Every project has its own page like this, so if you're system admin, you can go in and see how each project is doing right from the front page. The document library is where the content is stored. So if I wanted to access the content that we just accessed as an end user, I just go into here And here's the navigation one that we were looking at earlier. But I can access the properties of that. See that it's only one version. So if it had multiple versions, you can revert back to previous versions. So it has a nice version control system. If I click the drop down here, these are all the different options I have where I can either subscribe to it. If I'm subscribed to it, anytime a change that is made to that document, I'll automatically get a notification, even if I'm not the owner. So this is another way that your publisher or who's in charge of your learning management system can stay on top of things. They can be subscribed to the different documents, and once they see something's published, they can know to bring it into the LMS. If I wanted to create a workflow, I would start it from here, and then it would go through the review process that I mentioned earlier.
Ken?
Yep.
Just to quickly, when you say document, you've used it a few times as far as the document.
Yep.
Would that, can I just as easily replace that with training or e-learning, or are those two different things?
The document is the actual process, simulation, video that is being used. So it's an e-learning document, which can be embedded into your courses. So it all depends on what your terminology is. If a simulation is considered like an e-learning document to you, then yes, you can call it e-learning. But the terms that UPerform uses is they just call these documents that you can then embed into your courses or publish out into different types of documentation, like a Word document, PDF file, video, whatever you need it to be. It's the source file for UPerform.
Okay.
Okay, so just to reiterate, because I'm going to try and say this in Canada Post a little bit, is when we create elements that could be included in our overall e-learning course, like this would be considered one element that we could have embedded into the course. And if Nelson has a project team where everyone's working on different elements, they can publish to communicate to the team that that particular piece is done, and it can go into the digital learning as part of the course, and then the course is like the final product.
Correct.
But these are like, I think it's like you create a video in UPerform.
Right.
That video would be embedded in your digital content, maybe on one of the pages.
Okay.
So this is one element that would be part of that digital training.
What if I only have a page turner as an e-learning, where there aren't any videos that are embedded, it's just content where it's the click next, next, next?
Then I don't think you would have this as one of your elements.
You could use a UPerform course for that.
Oh, okay.
Where you can
But
get
can you
into,
embed this into a course?
yes, this can be embedded into a course. Your courses can be used for many different things. So I'm going to switch to an authoring side and actually open up a course and show you what it looks like from an authoring standpoint, and maybe that'll help answer some questions.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to go into my UPerform recorder, which is what I have here, and open up one of, actually I'll open up the course that we just viewed in the demo. So this here is the Canada Post project that you saw earlier, the Maximal folder, the courses, and here is that Maximal course. Now, if you're creating it in multiple languages, that'll be stored here. So this is considered the binder, and then this is the actual course within the binder, and then your English and French would reside under the same binder. When you publish that out into UPerform, if your end user logs in as a French user, they would get the French course, and your English users would get the English course, and it's just from one publish. So you don't have to worry about your language codes really using UPerform. Like I know a lot of other systems, you have to publish it out for the English, publish it out for the French, and provide different language codes. You don't have to do that with UPerform. It automatically will detect what language they want to access it from and present it to them depending on what their browser settings are or how they've configured UPerform for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think we're both
that's on board for that.
oh yes, in awe or impressed by that, because I know that is a huge requirement and a challenge for us from a bilingual requirements and accents, and making sure that it's done in both and parallel, and try to get them as identical as we can or close, and then from a deployment perspective. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah. U-Perform is very powerful when it comes to translation. So the templates, they make it easy to translate a lot of your processes, because all your template text that is generated during the recording is automatically available in English and French. So once you decide to make it a French document, you switch it over to the French template, and all your click here, click there automatically gets translated for you. The only thing that you have to translate is any custom text that you manually typed in.
And what would the output look like for it to send to a translation? Because we do the translation externally. We don't do it at Canada Post anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have a translation output file?
Yes, you do. So see this tab here called Translation? You can export this in an XGlyph file, which is the standard file that most translating companies use. Once you get that file back, you import it, and anything that was English becomes French from their translation.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yep.
French often comes back with more words than English. So a text box in an e-learning or something like that, let's say, measures 2 inches by 1 inch. But when you put the French text in it, all of a sudden it would be 2 inches by 3 inches.
Yep.
Is your system flexible enough to recognize that and automatically extend or expand those text boxes?
It automatically does.
A manual process?
That is not a manual process. You do still have to review it to make sure that, say, those text bubbles that came in, if you're using a simulation, you want to make sure that they don't cover the screenshot that's being that you're talking about. But that's the only thing you have to really watch out for, and it's very rare that it would cover it. It's just that you always want to review it after translation just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen here is that course that I presented earlier. So the front page where you can link to different pages in your course, that is presented here. So if I wanted to make changes to it, I could just click and type in those changes. If I want to add in additional pages, so say I want to make it more like a PowerPoint presentation, I can actually just click the insert page and then choose what type of page I want to bring in. So I have my image pages, video, simulations, as well as there's branching and many different options. When you bring in one of these pages, so I'm just going to put in new page, you're not stuck with the configuration that it gives you. So say I don't need 2 images, I just actually wanted 1. I could just remove that, and I can make this one a little bit bigger if I wanted to. I can flip these around so it's completely configurable and you can tailor it to your needs. You can also add in an assessment with different questions as well. So for instance, if I wanted to show a multiple choice question, this is how the multiple choice question would be presented to my user. So I would just, and then because this is part of an assessment, they would get a final score on that.
Just curious, I know that it's not often included in a lot of e-learnings, but is there for your assessments, any chance at a free-form text field?
Free-form text where you basically just make a...
So you have a question, the color of the sky is, and instead of having multiple choices, the learner would have to enter blue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if I wanted to add in a free-form question, I could just here, and then I could add just fill in, right?
Okay.
And then
that's great. Thank you.
And then
you can add all of the permutations that are possible for spelling or space.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with a fill-in question, you have to put it in exactly.
Okay.
So
capital, so it's cap sensitive.
It's not case sensitive. But if you say you're using an acronym and they decided to spell out the whole word, even though that's correct, they would fail in that case.
Be rejected.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But what you could do in that case is you could use things like matching questions where they drag and drop the answers. You can use a simulation. You have hotspot where they actually have to click on an image, the correct spot of the image, and many different versions of the drag and drop as well. So it's flexible in the sense that you have a lot of options, but when it comes to the fill-in, you're stuck with the one answer.
Okay.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Good.
Okay. So this is how a course looks like. If you like, I'd like to quickly show you how to record a document and show you how to edit that a little bit.
Sorry, I have one more question. When you're showing us the customizable templates, are we able to upload our logo in certain areas and have different footers? Sometimes in some courses we want to have the title of the course, but then the module changes as it goes along.
Mm-hmm. You can show that. So
Okay.
the template is very flexible. As you saw, I should have probably pointed this out a little bit better, but I configured the template to meet your color schemes and logo here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was the YouPerform landing page or if that was one of your examples of a document versus a course development.
This
So
is a course. So this is completely configurable. These buttons are what you see down here are adjustable. So if you wanted the next button to look like a circle or appear differently on the page and at a different spot, you can do all that. The template has some standard ones that you can use, but if you're good with CSS files and coding, you can create something completely from scratch for yourself if you wanted to. Any questions on that?
that answers for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have very strict branding guidelines, and more so as far as the fonts, the colors, the sizes, and certain presentations versus e-learning. So I think that's kind of what Jess was alluding to, which I think that helped answer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very flexible for that. So I just wasn't sure what your limitations were, so that's what I did on the fly. Okay, so to record a process, the type I'm going to use for my example is actually a task that was assigned to me. So I could go file new recording and go from there, but I'm going to click view and open my task list. And here I have a recording right at the top. So I'm just going to open that. The system is going to configure itself so that I can go with that recording. So. Of course, this time it doesn't want to do it that way. Sorry about that. I'm just going to make the recording using file new. You give it a name. You tell it which language you want to record it in. So if I wanted to make this for Canadian French, I would select this one here, and then my template would be in French. I choose the type of file I want to create. So I'm just going to click the drop down here, and I can create a recording, just a document. So if I just want to create something that's process-based without having a simulation to it, I can create something like that for, say, WMIS, where you're identifying like hazardous images and so on. I can create a course, a new template, a student guide, which is a cluster of processes or documents brought into one and configured to provide in-class training, and a course package where you can bundle a bunch of courses together and bring it into a learning management system. I'm going to choose recording and click OK. It's giving me a resolution warning there. It's because the template is configured for a smaller resolution, and because I'm on I'm sharing my screen, it's a little picky. All right, so this is the UPerform recorder. To start my recording, I just click the record option here, and then I start going through my step-by-step. Actually, I'll just pause that because it wants to record the other screen, so I'm just going to change which one I'm sharing. Everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
And you see Word up?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the UPerform recorder. As I mentioned before, if I click here, I can add in audio, but for this, I'm not going to do that. So I've started my recording, and you can see it's just going to give me the step-by-step as I record the document. So I can type in. Click File, and Save. So just do a quick. There. So I've recorded a few steps. You can see as I record, it basically gives me a preview, so I can undo it anytime. I can add in notes as I record if I wanted to. So if I'm sitting with a SME, I can add in those notes that they add while I'm recording. And then once I'm done, I stop my recording. And I can go through my step-by-step and edit as I need. So for instance, if I find this image too large, I can shrink it down. If I want to add in additional words, I could just type in, add in as I go. I could add in hyperlinks, different bubbles to explain, and annotation sets so that if other authors are going through it, they could read my notes and see where I left off, or if they're presenting this, they can read the notes in the presentation. If I click insert, I could bring in content from other documents, add in multiple steps on one page. So if there's more than one way to do something, you can add in those branching steps where if they click on that particular item, it takes them to a different point in the process. So I'll just save this. And I can check it in. And once I check it into the server, it becomes available to use in my courses, or I could publish it out to my end users. So from here, I can click File, Publish. So I could do a local publish, and all the items you see here would be made available. So from that one recording, I got my video, procedure tables, my help guides, I got all my business process documents, workflow simulations, as well as my SCORM package. And all that can be brought into either a learning management system or brought into UPerform itself to help your users go through the content to learn your target application. Or if they're already in the target application and click help, it brings them right to this page to show them the step-by-step process. Any questions on recording?
Looking around the room, I think so far we're good.
Okay. So the final thing I'll show you is actually from within an application. So for instance, here I have the target application, which is Salesforce. Okay. If I can navigate to different pages. So for instance, if I click leads, I could go and create a new lead. And if I'm not sure how to create that lead, I can click Help. And it brings me right to the page that I need help on. In this case, it opened it up as a procedure table, but the user can decide between a work instruction, simulation, or the procedure table to go through to help them through that process. For demonstration purposes, we didn't publish everything because that just gets too big, but that shows you that it supports the content-sensitive help for pretty much every application that's web-based, as well as many different target applications. And SAP is what it's designed to work with. So the recognition or the content-sensitive help works the best with SAP. Are there any questions on what I have shown you today?
You know what? I'm going to start, Ken. Thank you so much. That's great. I guess the one thing I was looking to see, and again, I apologize if maybe I wasn't able to make the link because I was trying to keep up, take some notes, and think of, again, in the application of Canada Post, and especially, not to be selfish, but for me specifically in my program and what I'm looking to get out of this. Back to that EPSS piece. So again, in the simplest of forms, so if I'm trying to create or have a course today that exists, that, for example, let's use something we know. I am pushing Microsoft Office, or sorry, Microsoft Word. I'm sending Word out to everybody. But my audience has never used Word, or maybe it's a new version that's very, very different than what they've used before. What I'm looking to see is how can I, knowing that there's going to be iterations and there's going to be changes, and it's everyone's going to have it on their system or their laptop, looking to have that navigational, if you will, and or training support right on the device, right inbuilt, or kind of overseeing and overlaid, I suppose, for lack of a better word, on the application or the system itself. Now, one can use Word, or one can use, here's the technology device, like an iPhone, for example. I don't know if I handed someone a brand new iPhone or an iPad, I guess maybe it's easier because visually it's better to follow. That would populate, hey, if I need help, or if it notifies that the employee has had it for the first time, hey, before you even use this product, here's what you need to know, here's what you need to learn, how to navigate, how to the tasks, how to use it, and in turn, even more, and then at the robust level, as I complete it, and you pass, quote unquote, that gets recorded in Learning Zone, or in our learning management content, or learning management system, sorry, and now I can proceed to utilizing or using that device as it was meant, or that system, or that application.
Okay. This is designed to do that, exactly what you're saying. So like whether you're recording Microsoft Office or recording SAP or little apps for an iPhone, you'd have to use an emulator to create the iPhone apps, but you can do it. This will record the step-by-step procedure for them. And if you want to send out when you publish this out either into your learning management system, or if you're using UPerform itself to publish to, you can send out notifications to your users through UPerform itself if you wanted to. And then if this is the first time they're using it, you can have like a standard template or script or whatever, where that gets sent out through communications. They click the link, it takes them right to the document. They don't even have to go through the navigation of UPerform. Like you could link it directly to the document, whether it's the simulation, the guided help, or just the straight Word document itself that is produced when you create the recording. All that information is there and available for your user.
Okay, I have a couple. How does that notification get pushed out? Like, where does it appear for the user?
It could appear in their email. So if you link it to your SMTP server, or if you link it to, if you're like using Outlook, it works with a variety of different email servers. It gets pushed out through the email server.
Is there a way for it to be like on the app itself, for there to be like, I've just gone into Salesforce for the first time today, there's something new, and it gets pushed that way? Or does it have
like a new icon, or go here first as a new feature, new functionality?
For target,
telling you to go to the help button to get the information you need?
Yeah, for target applications, yes. So if they're using SAP, you could set something like that up relatively easily. If it's Microsoft Word, like Microsoft isn't a target application, in that case, what I would do is whenever you have someone new to that's going to be working with you, it would be part of their basic navigation training, if that makes sense, that you can create in UPerform itself. And from it wouldn't be in the application itself, but that's something that would be sent out through their welcoming message or whatnot whenever someone joins. So it depends on the application in that case. If it's a target application, you could do it.
Okay.
And most web applications you could do that for as well.
Okay. And is it possible, like, does every user have to have that UPerform dashboard, or is it possible to limit sort of their access to UPerform to whatever we upload to SuccessFactors through using UPerform and their target application, so that they don't have that extra UPerform dashboard to worry about?
Yeah, you don't have to use a UPerform dashboard at all for your end users. So if you're using
But they'll all receive it?
Well, no, you don't have to. You can prevent the system from mailing that information out to them. It's what you basically want to display to your users, and you can configure UPerform to display what you need it to. The learning library is a URL that you can or can't send out depending on what you want to do, right? So if you don't want them to access it, you just don't send out that URL, and they can access it through either your intranet, your learning management system, whatever you need them to access.
Perfect. Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to give you a different scenario. Think that you have 50,000 users. They don't have email. They have an Android that they need to learn how to use. Let's say that they're new versus somebody that has been here for 10 years, and there's just a new update in the system. How would that and there's no access to our learning management system through this Android tool. How would that go? How would we go about from either a push or a net new development for those new users to learn how to use this Android tool?
For that, I would recommend using the UPerform dashboard. You can set up the dashboard to work with Android or work with your phones. Like as you can see here, it's got something set up right there. So when they first receive it, I would recommend that this is what they see, and then they can choose what part they want to go through. So if it's a user that's new, you can have this say new user. They click on it, it brings them through the different features of their Android phone. If say they have some experience, they can go to like the intermediate course, or they could maybe have that one take them right to the final assessment to quiz them on their knowledge to see how well they know it. So there's different ways you could set that up.
Okay, so then for the 55,000 users that we have, they would all need to have a UPerform license in order to get access to that.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how would a push function from that perspective to the 55,000 Android pieces that we would have across the country?
That'd have to work with IT to get that to be pushed out. I know with a lot of hand devices, the first time people access it, you can have a welcoming message to show them how to use the phone. And part of that welcoming message could be the learning library that you're seeing there. But I don't know what type of apps or restrictions you have there, so I can't say how we would do that. I just know that it's possible.
Yeah, we've got firewalls to keep tiny little ants out of everything.
Yeah.
And then so you answered the first Full2Sci question, so thank you very much for showing me that. And
from a second perspective, if it's just, we've got it already set up, but let's pretend that we know how to integrate it in our crazy firewall, and now we just have a new push. There is a new app on this Android, and we want all 55,000 users to know how to use it. Would it be the same idea that it would pop up on the dashboard?
You could do it that way, or I'm assuming everyone would have access to the email at that point, so you could do it through the email.
Email.
They don't?
There's no
Okay.
event.
Then, I recommend do it through the dashboard. They'd get a notification. So, for example, here under my dashboard, which your users would have access to something similar, it would appear under the alerts.
Okay.
So you could push it through that way, yeah.
Yeah. So then can we figure out like how you showed me the phone with the 3 sections there just before? Can we have a push that the dashboard is always either that they've got the option of having it popped up or pushed out so that they get an alert right there, for example, or
I'm 90% sure you can, but I'll have to verify that with Unsiley.
Okay, I'm really pushing this to a limit that I don't even know if we can ever get to, but it's just for the questions that come in that we know what our limits are as well, what's possible. Now, is it also an option to have, so the dashboard is an overlay, or can we have an app that is uploaded in this Android that you would go into YouPerform, and let's say, same idea where you've got your settings, you've got a little number 2 because you've got 2 alerts on there, and then you would click the YouPerform app?
I'd have to see if if that function is available. As far as I know right now, that it comes up as you're seeing here, so it's just like on a front page. It's not really an app per se, but I will verify that with Unsiley.
Okay, and so this would be web-based then. They would go and open, so they would open the internet to access this?
Well, it's done through a hyperlink. So a lot of the time it's a welcome message. And on that welcome message, there's received training, and they click that button and it goes through the browser, but they don't see it going through the browser. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I think that lends itself well if they have email. I'm trying to figure out how to go about when they don't have any email. Go ahead, Carlton.
I've got a quick question.
Sorry, go ahead, please, Ken.
It depends on how your IT has set up the phone. So a lot of the time, the welcome message has nothing to do with email. It's as soon as the person logs into the phone the first time, they get that welcome message that automatically pops up. No email necessary, and there's a button on it that says take training.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Ken, I've got some questions that I had sort of forwarded on last week, just around, for me, I need to understand time-wise, what is sort of the time commitment to something like this? So hypothetically, like, let's use this as an example. What would typically look like a 30-minute e-learning, right? Like if I, in the traditional sense, was working with a 30-minute e-learning,
like,
to do it on...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
30 minutes to create or 30 minutes for your user to go through?
30 minutes for your user to go through.
Okay.
So if that's typically what something would look like, to do it on the YouPerform dashboard or on the YouPerform system, to get it to a point where it is ready for use on a target application, what kind, and I know this is a super vague question, so like what kind of time commitment would that look like?
Yeah, like from end to end, to get it to that state where you've got the dashboard and the tracking and the loading and getting it to the point where it's ready for consumption or to publish or ready to go out the door, I guess, right? Yeah, level of effort versus timeline, yeah. It's
very hard for me to gauge that one because it really depends on the complexity of it, right? So if it's more video based, it would go a lot faster because you're just recording simulations and going through it that way. But if it's more informational, where you have images coming up and more of like text for the courses, it may take, like, it adds a level of complexity to it where if you wanted to have more hyperlinks and whatnot, more documentation, it kind of makes it hard to say. So for, say, if it's a simulation based and maybe 5 minutes for simulation for your user to go through, I would guess that's about, I guess, what would that be? 15 simulations, roughly. So I'd say maybe about a week or so, depending on how complex it is, and that's making sure all those simulations are in the course. Yeah. You have it published. I would assume your templates are pre-configured, so you don't want to really have to worry about that because a template can be used for all your courses. I'd say maybe about a week, going through the review cycle, creation of the simulations. Once it's all reviewed and ready to go, is it multiple languages as well? That would pretty much add, I guess, 75% more time if you're doing both English and French. So I would say about a week. Yeah.
No, and that's great. I know it's, like I say, I'm well aware that's a really tough question to answer, and I really appreciate you trying because it helps to sort of frame it for us. So that's awesome. Thank you.
And if I may piggyback off what Margot said, so again, our challenge currently, and one of the reasons why we're reaching out to you and having this discussion really, is not even so much, like you said, the creating or getting to a point, a status of deployment or consumption. It's now as the changes and iteration and maintain and sustain happens, especially if it's at a feverish pace, then what would that look like? So just to kind of further commit you from a maintain, sustain update perspective. So as we get a plethora of updates or changes, so to Jessica's point, either new functionality or new screens, it's now blue instead of green, or they've added new iterations. What does that cycle time look like?
Well, depending on what those changes are, if it's, let's say, a button, you can quickly go through and recapture the screenshots for that button, right? And depending, say it's a 15-step process, I could have that done within 5 minutes where I've recaptured that button. And now once those screenshots are recaptured in those 5 minutes, I check that into the server and I would open up a course. So for example, here I have my process. I would quickly go to, I'm just going to use a course as an example here. And that process, if it's linked, or say that course has multiple processes in it, rather than going in and updating one by one, I can select view and select embedded simulations, and all the simulations would appear here. And the system would detect if it's not current or not. So if I just checked it in and it's never been part of this course, it would have a status of not current. I'd click the update button, it'd go through all the simulations, update the course automatically for me, and then all I have to do is republish. So it'll be about 5 minutes to recapture everything. Depending how many simulations are here, the system could take anywhere from 30 seconds to, I'd say, about 10 minutes updating it, and then republishing it, depending on the size of the course, can take anywhere from like 10, 15 minutes to an hour, depending how big your course is, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. And it's clarifying some other points that we had, so this is good. I think good discussion. In that same vein, Ken, if I may, so is it possible, and kind of take it to another level, whereby, so when we look at the roles of each individual, so let's say theoretically we've got the lovely, really smarty-pantsy people who are like the developers, and they're creating the content. So they're the ones that are updating the apps. They're the ones that are creating the functionality and apps in the background. Can you build this into that cycle time or into that process whereby as they update, theoretically, the content in the application or the system live, that it feeds and updates the content for training so that when they hit launch, go, and it means the functionality is ready, that any new user that now logs in and goes would also get that new functionality built into their environment?
They would. It'll carry through. So as they're working on the content, as long as they're publishing it out, even if the user is in it at the time of the publish, it would update it.
Still having to be published though, like I'd have to still republish though.
Yeah, you always have to, any change you make, there's always that publishing portion to it. And there's multiple ways you could set that up. You could set that up so the system automatically publishes everything that's queued to be published on a Friday night. Or if this is something that, everything's being built, people are taking the training, tight deadlines, you could publish it at lunch, you could publish it in the evening of every day. I don't really recommend publishing while people are actually in it because it does slow down the system a little bit. Not really too bad, but just to make sure that there aren't any errors or nothing is missed, it's best to try to publish it when your users aren't currently using it.
And once the republishing is done, or I'm going to look at as an update course. So you've updated content, you've done that screenshot for that button, it's changed, great. You're republishing, and let's say that you've done your meta tagging, it's set up, and it affects 50 courses. So once you hit your republish, because it's being done between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., what are the steps after the republishing? Do you need to do any type of QA, any other setup, any retagging for the users, or is the process done after you hit publish?
The process is done after you hit publish. It's always good to look at it to make sure that everything published correctly, but that's about all you have to do. And that's just because I'm kind of finicky that way. I've never had a problem after I've published, and I've been working with the software for about 7 years now. And after publish, I've never had an incident where it corrupted it or anything, but it's always good, no matter what the application is, when you republish, always take a quick look. Make sure it's okay. Yeah.
And then just to confirm, really solidify your what you've answered me. So it will republish all 50 items that were meta tagged with that button change.
Yes. Like the system will detect the change, right? So because everything is version controlled, if the system detects that it's not on a new version, it'll skip it. But if it notices, oh, now it's on version 2 and it was on version 1, it will publish it. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And that's part of what we're discussing as far as it's a very big shift within our organization, identifying kind of how that looks from end to end, which people involved, the processes, the timeline, the cost, all those wonderful factors. So we need to have a clear picture as we're going to, obviously, next step, escalate this to our superiors and provide our findings and see kind of the best way to proceed, whether it be short-term and or long-term. So thanks.
Happy to help. Any other questions?
Any other questions, Jessica, Carol, Margot?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, Carlton? Yeah, I think I'm pretty good too. I mean, still a lot of questions, but I mean, it's more processing now, digesting and making sense of it, make sure I'm clear and seeing what that looks like. Kind of, I'm a visual person end to end and walk through what that would potentially.
I might follow up with some more specific
sure.
questions in the next couple of days. But for right now, this has really helped me to put it into perspective, like to see it, visualize it, get a sense of how it works. So thank you so much.
And I'd be happy to help further. So as you come up with those questions, feel free to send them my way. If I can't answer them right away, I will contact people that can. So I'll definitely get that information to you.
That's excellent. And if we can just, I know it came up sort of earlier, but just double checking that that we can kind of dynamically update with SAP, just confirming, checking with Ancilli, making sure that, I know that was a big one for some people. So if we can kind of get some definite clarification on that one, that would be fantastic.
And that's with success factors, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually took a note of it, and I'm going to send an email out right after the call to them to try to get the answer as soon as possible for you.
That's
great,
awesome. Mike.
Yep.
Thank you. We appreciate your patience on this as well, as we're trying to make sense of all the different companies and players and the roles and the systems as well. So that's great.
No, that's perfect. That's, and as we mentioned before, the purpose here is, we want to make sure when you decide to move forward with an application, if you do move forward, is you have all the answers to your question and you're confident that the selection you'll be making is the right one, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's we're talking about we're making an investment here. We know the product. As you've seen, Ken's a guru. He's my guy. So, but I mean, if he can basically make it sing. So that's what I like about it. And I think we've talked about this, Nelson, on the previous call. What I think another thing I'd like to see would be your wish list. We talked about a lot of different things here, from the Androids right to the application, using the dashboard or not. If you can share some of those, in the perfect world, what do you want the solution to do? We can work on that and also try to support and see what we can do to try to satisfy as many as we can for you. Because we do it right now. Sorry?
Yep. No, I was going to say, you read my mind. I was looking at Margaret, I'm thinking in my brain as I'm trying to transfer my content in my head to hers to say, I see like a roadmap that we put together as far as what we would need to see or what ideally we'd love to see or need or want in a roadmap, both from a EPSS perspective and or an LCMS, I guess, to kind of see how we would benefit and what we would ideally like to see. And then you can certainly let us know, not even close, Nelson, or we can do 80%, 90, 75, or we can't do this, but we can do that, and kind of reach that person, that happy medium, if you will, or somewhere where we can then say, okay, now we're understanding, it's clear, and we're satisfied. Can we go ahead, and does it meet our needs?
Exactly. And also what I'd like to share with you is we, every few months, we actually have what we call a U-Perform working group with our clients, because one of our larger users is the Government of Canada, as you may know, because they use it with their SAP application. And as part of these workshops, we do a lunch and learn if you want. So we share any new functionality, but also what we've been doing is we've been documenting, basically building business cases for our clients to Ansiedly to say, here, this is a recurring demand, and we try to feed and see what we can add to the product roadmap to meet the client's needs as well. And Ansiedly has been very, very, very receptive to that because they actually participate in our working groups. We had the CEO here participating, joining us here in Ottawa, for an example, directly at our office to do these type of presentation with us and to show the support. So that being said, maybe we don't have the 100% solution, but it doesn't mean we can't try to get it in future releases. So that's what we've done, and we did actually get some things incorporated over the last couple of years. So that's nice to have as well.
Perfect. And you know what? You brought up a good point. How often are there new changes or releases or updates to your platform, the system for U-Perform?
I'd say a minimum of twice a year on average, unless there's a fix that needs to be applied. But a lot of these fixes, you won't even notice. You'll get an email saying, okay, there's new functionality that's been added because it's all cloud-based. It's seamless to the organization, and basically they apply the upgrades or the patches and everything else, and you just get basically a notification that it's done. And then you'll get documentation or supporting documents stating these are the changes that's been applied. They'll provide you a link to see the simulations, for an example of if there's a new feature that you may want to use, but then it's part of your subscription fee, right? So you get them automatically.
Yeah. Okay.
And if there's a change to the UI on the dashboard, is it just an automatic push because it's cloud-based? There wouldn't be any impact to the end user?
Exactly. There's no impact to the end user. The user interface, and you'll always get notification before they do it. So you know, because if there's something you don't need, for example, they'll add new languages. For us, at some point, we say, well, it's not a priority to have new languages on our platform at this time. So, you can skip us, type of thing, right? I mean, we do English, French, and Spanish. So, but that's about it for now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions in the room? No? That's great. So yeah, so to Margot's point, we'll definitely take this back. We'll mull it over, and I'm sure we'll have not only a response and some follow-up questions, but maybe at some point, if you guys are okay, maybe another touch point to kind of solidify and finalize, and maybe a kind of a next steps and potentially a follow-up. So
absolutely.
Okay,
we just
great.
have to coordinate, let us know, and we will make ourselves available to answer any of your questions. And the questions we currently have, we'll send the email out and try to get the answers to you as soon as possible. Sorry.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much, both to you, Mike, and to Ken. That's been very insightful and helpful. So appreciate you taking the time. And I know at our team, I think it was definitely value added for us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.